I never thought I'd be the guy left standing in a rented tux, holding a ring that suddenly meant nothing. It was a late Saturday morning, one of those days where the sky is so blue and cloudless that it almost feels like it's mocking you. I was pacing behind the old white church my mama used to drag me to every Sunday growing up. That same church, yeah. I figured it'd bring some kind of charm or blessing into the whole wedding thing. Turns out, I was just recycling memories into something cursed. Her name was Emily. Emily with the honey blonde hair and that crooked little smile that used to undo me like a button. We met at a diner off Route 9 3 years ago. She was working the night shift, slinging coffee and sarcasm with equal force. I was just a tired HVAC guy grabbing a bite after a long job in Dover. One refill turned into 10, and 10 refills turned into a date. Next thing I knew, we were talking rings, babies, life. She always said she wanted something small. Intimate was her word. Just family and a few close friends, she said. I agreed because I didn't care about all the fluff. I just wanted her. But that morning, something felt off. It was in the way she avoided my eyes during the rehearsal. How her smile was a little too rehearsed, too polite. Even the way her maid of honor, her cousin Tara, wouldn't look at me straight. Still, I ignored it. I kept thinking, nerves. Everybody gets the jitters. God knows I'd nearly thrown up that morning twice already. We were minutes away from walking down the aisle when she asked to see me alone. She pulled me into the old Sunday school room, the one with faded Bible verses painted on the walls and wooden chairs that creaked when you breathed too hard. I need to say something, she said, her voice trembling just enough to raise every hair on my arms. I smiled, tried to break the tension. Cold feet? That's normal, Em. Heck, I've got icicles in my socks right now. She looked at me, and suddenly I knew this wasn't just nerves. There was something behind her eyes, something cruel dressed up as pity. I can't do this, she said. My first instinct was to laugh, like she was joking. But her lips didn't twitch. Her hands didn't reach for mine. Em. I don't love you, Jack, she said. I haven't for a while now. I thought maybe if we went through with this, I could make it work, but... My mind started buzzing, static-like. I was blinking but not really seeing anything. You don't. What the hell are you talking about? I've been seeing someone, she said, like it was an overdue confession and not a grenade tossed at my chest. His name is Scott. He's sick. He's dying. He has maybe a few months left. But when I'm with him, I feel alive. I feel like me. I backed away, hit the edge of one of those Sunday school desks. You're telling me this now? I whispered. Right before our wedding? I couldn't lie to you, Jack. Not in front of God. Not up there. I wanted to scream, to curse, to throw something, anything, but all I could do was nod like a fool. I felt hollow, like the wind could have blown straight through me and I wouldn't have noticed. And the sex, she added softly, almost guiltily, it's different with him. I don't know how to explain it. He's dying, and he doesn't hold back. He loves like it's the last time, every time. That did it. That last part broke something in me I didn't even know was fragile. She walked out after that, heels clacking like a death sentence across the wooden floor. I stood there, alone with a ring in my pocket and 1,000 questions chasing each other in my head. Outside, the music started to play. The guests waited. But the bride was gone. And I knew, somewhere in the thick mess of my pain, that I wasn't just going to cry about it. I was going to get even. I didn't walk back out to the altar. Didn't face the guests. Didn't make an announcement. I slipped out the side door of that church like a coward, tux and all, and sat in my truck with the engine off and the windows down, trying to breathe through something that felt like drowning. The ring was still in my pocket. I took it out and stared at it, a plain gold band that cost me 2 weeks' pay and some pride. I should have been standing up there smiling, sliding it onto Emily's hand. Instead, I sat there listening to birds chirp and people murmur inside, wondering where the hell the groom went. That was supposed to be the best day of my life. Instead, it became the first chapter in a new one I never asked for. I stayed in that truck for hours after the guests cleared out. My mom knocked on the window at some point, eyes rimmed red, asking if I was okay. I said I needed time. She understood, I think, or at least knew better than to press. By the time I finally drove home, the sun was already tipping below the hills. Our apartment still had the his and hers throw pillows on the couch and our wedding cake in the fridge. Emily's dress was hanging in the bedroom, draped across the closet like a ghost in silk. I didn't sleep that night. I just sat there in the dark, turning the ring over in my hand and thinking about her and that guy, Scott. Terminally ill, she'd said. And dying. What kind of person dumps their fiancé for a man with one foot in the grave? What kind of person says she loves someone because he makes dying look sexy? That's when something inside me clicked. This wasn't just heartbreak. This wasn't just betrayal. This was insult. This was humiliation. This was something I'd carry on my back for years if I let it rot there. Every time someone said, wedding, I'd flinch. Every time someone asked, what happened with Emily? I'd have to relive this. Not if I had a say. Not if I did something about it. I spent the next 2 weeks pretending to be heartbroken in public. The truth? I wasn't pretending, I was just good at keeping the rage buried underneath. Everyone pitied me. Her friends, my friends, even Tara sent me some kind of sad apology text. She's confused. I'm so sorry, Jack. You didn't deserve that. Damn right I didn't. It took a few calls and quiet favors, but I found out where Scott lived. He had a small house on the edge of town. Lived alone, apparently, was on some kind of state disability check. I knew his last name now too, Whitman. Scott Whitman. Drove a gray Honda with one of those, live every moment, bumper stickers on the back. I must have sat across the street from his house for 2 hours the first time I drove there, engine idling, watching. The next day, I came back in a suit and tie, clipboard in hand, and knocked on his door. He opened it slowly, looking tired but oddly cheerful. He had a thin frame, pale skin, and deep hollows under his eyes. You could tell he'd been through the ringer. Honestly, I wouldn't have wished cancer, or whatever he had, on my worst enemy. But he wasn't just any enemy. Hey there, I said, smiling like I was selling insurance. Scott Whitman, right? I'm Ben from Moments Matter Hospice. We're doing courtesy outreach for potential patients who qualify for full-time assistance. Got a second? He blinked at me. I guess. I stepped in. That was all I needed. The inside of his place was quiet. Clean. A single photo of Emily sat framed on a side table. That stung more than I expected. I sat down on his couch and pretended to go over paperwork. Asked a few vague questions. Took a look at his meds. Got him talking. Turns out, he was stage 4, some rare cancer in his liver that had spread. No family around. Just a couple of old buddies he rarely saw. And Emily. She's the light at the end, man, he said, leaning back with this lazy grin. I don't know what I did to deserve her, but hell, if I go tomorrow, I'll go happy. I smiled, too. That's beautiful. We talked for a bit more. I learned all kinds of little things. Where he kept his spare key. When Emily usually came over. That she'd started spending the night. He had no idea who I was. None. And I wasn't gonna tell him. Not yet. Back home, I started a notebook. Every detail I learned went into it. Times. Dates. Habits. Things they liked. Things he needed. I took photos of his place from my truck. I recorded conversations. I had a plan. I wasn't sure where it was going yet, but I knew it started with getting close. Real close. Emily never told him about me. That was clear. He thought I was just some hospice intern doing my rounds. He let me stop by every few days. I was patient. Kind. Respectful. The kind of guy you trusted. And while I brought him soup and offered to run errands, I watched. Listened. Waited. Because if Emily thought she could humiliate me and walk away into the sunset with her dying fantasy boy, she didn't understand me at all. You don't break a man like that and leave the pieces lying around. No, ma'am. If she wanted a dying man so bad, I was gonna make sure she got everything that came with him: pain, suffering, and an ending no one would see coming. And that was just the beginning. I knew I had to move slow. Reckless revenge burns fast and leaves you exposed. What I needed was something colder. Measured. Lasting. I didn't want to just ruin Emily's new fairy tale romance. I wanted to infect it, rot it from the inside out. And the funny thing? Scott made it easy. The guy was friendly, trusting. Whether it was the cancer softening him or just how he was wired, I don't know. But every time I knocked, he let me in. He thought I was some kind of angel, always checking in, offering help, bringing over meals like I was his personal hospice buddy. I played the part perfectly. You know, he said one day while I was helping him organize his pills, "You're the only one who treats me like a real person, not just a ticking clock." "Don't mention it," I said with a small smile. "You're more than that. You still matter." He nodded, eyes misting a little. Emily says the same thing. There it was again, her name, like a mosquito in my ear. Every time he said it, it irritated some nerve under my skin. "She really loves me, you know," he went on, like he had to defend it. "It's not just pity sex." I forced a chuckle. "I believe you." But inside? I wanted to crush his throat. Emily and I hadn't spoken since the day she walked out. No texts, no calls. But I still had her location from our shared phone plan. She never turned it off. Probably forgot all about it. It told me everything I needed to know. I could tell when she was at Scott's. When she stayed the night. When she lied to her friends about needing space. I started planting seeds with Scott. "Are you sure she's being honest with you?" I asked one evening while I dropped off a casserole I hadn't even cooked, just bought at the store and swapped into a baking dish. He looked up from the couch, surprised. "What do you mean?" "Nothing, man. Sometimes people say what we want to hear. Especially when they know time's short." He frowned. "Emily's not like that." "Right. Of course not. Sorry, I shouldn't have said anything. But I did say something. I left a doubt. One tiny crack in his castle. That's how you start an avalanche. One shift." About a week later, I was there again. This time, I offered to fix a leak under his kitchen sink. He was too weak to do it himself, and it was the perfect excuse to snoop a bit. While he rested on the couch, I rummaged through a few drawers in the kitchen. Found a little locked box in one of them. Bingo. I didn't take it, didn't open it yet. But I took note of it. I had a locksmith buddy. All I needed was one picture of the lock. Later that night, I emailed the photo to my friend and got instructions on how to crack it. A few days later, when Scott went down for a nap, I picked the lock in under a minute. Inside were letters. Dozens of them. Written by Scott to Emily. Some new. Some old. He never gave them to her. Some were romantic. Some were darker. Obsessive. One said. If you ever leave me, I'll haunt your life. I'll be in every photo. Every new guy's bed. You'll never get away from me. Another. You said I made you feel alive. Don't forget, you said that. So if you stop loving me, maybe you deserve to die instead. That one stuck with me. I took photos of every single letter. I printed one and mailed it to Emily. No return address. Just the letter folded inside an envelope, with her name written in blocky letters on the front. I waited 3 days, then texted Scott casually, "Everything okay between you two?" He replied. "She's acting weird. Distant. Something's off." I played dumb. She probably just needs space. Been a rough few weeks, right? But I knew what was happening. She read the letter. Saw the darkness. The obsessive side of him. Maybe she'd even started wondering if dying men were supposed to be that angry inside. One night, I accidentally left my phone unlocked on his coffee table. Left a fake message open in the Notes app. Something that looked like a conversation between Emily and me. I wrote both sides myself. Her side, "I miss you, Jack. I made a mistake." Mine, "I miss you too. But he's not gonna last long, is he?" I let him see it. Didn't say anything about it. Just casually picked it up and closed it later, like nothing happened. But I caught the look on his face. He was spiraling. A few days after that, I stopped by and found Scott drunk. Empty whiskey bottle on the floor. He was slurring his words, face flushed. "She's cheating," he said. My eyebrows raised. "What makes you think that?" He pointed at the TV, even though it wasn't on. "Because I'm not stupid, Jack." I sat beside him. "Did she say anything?" He shook his head. "But I can feel it. She thinks I'm too weak to notice." I patted his shoulder, pretending to be the sympathetic friend. But inside, I was giddy. This was the unraveling. I could see the thread pulling loose. "She's probably just overwhelmed," I said. He didn't answer. Just sat there blinking at nothing, like he wasn't even in the room anymore. That night, I sent Emily an anonymous text from a burner phone. "He knows. You should be scared." The next day, she showed up at his place in a panic. I watched from my truck across the street. She yelled. He cried. She stormed out. She never spent the night again. And Scott? He stopped answering my texts. But I wasn't done yet. Because breaking them apart was just phase 1. Phase 2 was making sure Emily never got to walk away like a misunderstood soul who followed her heart. She hadn't followed her heart. She'd followed lust into a grave, and I was gonna bury her right next to it. Scott didn't die right away. I expected his health to spiral fast after the drinking and heartbreak, but cancer has a cruel way of dragging out the suffering. Some days he was near comatose. Others, he answered the door in his robe with a weak smile like nothing had changed. But Emily was gone. I'd severed that tie with a fake conversation, a printed threat, and a truth she never wanted to face. The truth that even if Scott loved her, there was something off about him, something she couldn't fix with sex or soft whispers in the dark. She'd blocked me again, of course. After the letter I sent her, I was radioactive in her world. But that didn't matter. I didn't need to speak to her. I needed to shape how others saw her. Friends. Family. Coworkers. People who knew us both. People who would whisper behind her back when I was done. I started going to the same coffee shop she used to take me to. Sat in the corner. Ordered her usual drink and left it untouched. Just sat there looking sad. Occasionally stared at my phone. Sometimes I'd tear up if someone glanced my way. The barista, a soft-hearted guy named Jeremy, eventually asked if I was okay. She left me, I said. For a guy who's dying. Said it made her feel more alive. Can you believe that? Jeremy stared at me for a moment. You're the fiancé. I blinked. You know her? She comes in here with him sometimes. She's different now. I smiled softly, like I wasn't bitter. I hope she finds what she's looking for. And just like that, I became the wounded hero. Word spread faster than wildfire in a small town like ours. I knew it would. I wanted it to. I leaned into it. When friends asked me what happened, I didn't badmouth her. I did worse. I forgave her. I think she's going through something, I told a mutual friend named Rachel one night at the bar. Losing someone slowly like that, it must mess with your head. I just wish I hadn't been in the way. Rachel's eyes welled up. Jack, I had no idea you were still hurting. I'll be fine, I said, sipping my beer. I just miss who she used to be. The more I forgave her in public, the more cruel she looked. It's one thing to leave a man who's screaming. It's another to walk out on the guy still holding the door open for you. Meanwhile, I paid Scott one final visit. He didn't answer the door, but it was unlocked. I let myself in, like always. He was curled up on the couch under a blanket. Looked smaller than before. Like the disease had eaten half his weight. He barely moved when I stepped in. You okay? I asked, kneeling beside him. He blinked. She's not coming back. No, she's not, I said, and this time I didn't fake the sympathy. He looked at me for a long moment. I don't think I even loved her. I think I just didn't want to die alone. That hit harder than I expected. Even now, knowing what he was to her, what he was to me, it struck a chord I didn't see coming. Do you want me to call anyone? I asked quietly. No. Just stay a while. So I did. Sat beside him. Watched the TV drone on with some old sitcom. For an hour or so, we were just two broken men. One already dead in spirit, the other still pretending he had something to live for. When I left, I knew it would be the last time I saw him alive. And I was right. Scott died 2 days later. No funeral. His family didn't want one. Emily didn't speak about it publicly. Not even a Facebook post. Just disappeared for a bit. But I was watching. And when she came back online, I made sure the final piece of my revenge was waiting. A week after Scott's death, I sent Emily a package. Inside was a single Polaroid photo of me sitting beside Scott on the couch that final night, my hand resting gently on his shoulder. A small smile on my face. Like a brother. A guardian angel. No note. No explanation. She'd know exactly what it meant. I had outlived him, and I'd been there at the end, not her. I'd been the better man. The one who stayed. And deep down, she would know, she left that man behind for a fling with a dying ghost. That realization was my real revenge. Let her live with that. After Scott's death and the photo I mailed her, Emily didn't show her face for a while. Not online, not in town, not even in passing through the grocery store aisles where she used to linger a little too long in the wine section. People said she went to stay with a cousin out of state. Others whispered she might have had a breakdown. There were rumors, sure. I made sure of that. But I never pushed too hard. The worst kind of revenge is the one that doesn't scream, it just waits and watches as they rot in their own regrets. That photo I sent? It landed exactly like I hoped. A friend of hers messaged me, asking if I'd really been with Scott when he died. I said, yes. I held his hand. He told me he never loved her, just didn't want to die alone. They read that message to Emily. She didn't speak for 3 whole days after. The thing about people like Emily is, they think they're the main character in everybody's life. That their drama fuels the world. So when someone stops chasing, when they stop playing along, it knocks them off balance. And I stopped chasing. No calls. No texts. No desperate sob story. I didn't even block her. I just stopped existing in her orbit. And you'd be surprised how fast someone who craved attention starts suffocating when you take that away. A month passed. Then one night, I came home from work to find a plain white envelope slid under my door. My name written in her handwriting. I knew it instantly. I stood there for a long while, just staring at it. Part of me didn't want to open it. Another part already knew what was inside. Curiosity won. Inside was a letter. 4 pages. No "Dear Jack." No signature at the end. Just words. Wounds she wanted to reopen. She said she didn't know what came over her. That it was never supposed to happen the way it did. That she didn't mean to fall in love with Scott, but he made her feel alive. She admitted she knew it was wrong, but it felt good. That his sickness made every moment feel like the last. Then, she said something that almost made me laugh. I know you won't believe me, but what we had was real too. I panicked. No apology. No acknowledgement that she'd humiliated me in front of everyone I loved. Just that she'd panicked. A week later, I got another envelope. This one had a single photo in it, us, standing in front of the chapel the day before the wedding. My arm around her waist. Her eyes locked on the camera like she owned the world. On the back she'd written, "You were always good to me. I hope one day you'll forgive me." I didn't reply. But I started planning something else. The annual fall gala was coming up, a fancy charity event her parents attended every year. The one where everyone wore tuxedos and glittering dresses, and tried to act richer than they were. I'd gone with her once, back when we were still planning the wedding. Her mom used to parade me around like I was a trophy, the good man Emily finally found. I bought a ticket this time too. Alone. When I walked in, people turned. Not out of respect, but because they didn't expect me to show up. Not after what happened. I saw her before she saw me. She was at the bar, wearing a deep emerald dress that hugged her like a lie she wanted to be believed. She looked thinner. Tired. When her eyes landed on me, I nodded politely. She froze. I made my way to the other side of the room, chatting with a few familiar faces. Smiling. Laughing. I made sure she could see how unaffected I was. Later that night, I bumped into her in the garden behind the ballroom. We stood there for a moment in silence, the distant music spilling out behind us. "I wasn't expecting to see you," she said finally. "I figured you wouldn't be," I replied. "You look, well." "I am." She looked down at her hands. "Did you really stay with him that night?" I nodded. "I did." She looked like she wanted to cry. "Why?" "Because he was dying," I said calmly. "And even though he hurt me, I didn't want him to go out alone." She was quiet for a long time. Then, her voice cracked. "I don't know what I'm doing anymore." I stepped forward, gently brushed a strand of hair behind her ear. Her eyes fluttered like they used to. Then I leaned in close and whispered, "Neither did I, the day you left me." And I walked away. That was the last real conversation we ever had. She tried texting a few times. Left voicemails. I never answered. I didn't need to. She'd already lost me. That was the punishment. Not a scream. Not a scene. Just knowing that I had survived her, and she had to live with herself. It's funny how quiet revenge can be. It doesn't have to come with fists or fireworks. Sometimes, it's the look in someone's eyes when they realize they've lost their grip on you, that's the real blow. That night at the gala? That was the final twist of the knife. And I didn't have to raise my voice once. After that night, I felt different. Lighter. Like I'd finally shaken off the last bit of rust clinging to my ribs. For months, Emily had taken up space in my mind like a ghost. I'd walk past old restaurants, smell her perfume on some stranger's jacket, hear her laugh in my dreams. But now? I'd buried that part of me where it belonged, somewhere quiet and forgotten. She, on the other hand, was unraveling. I didn't know that right away. But this town? It's got the memory of a goldfish and the mouth of a megaphone. Word spread quick. A few weeks after the gala, I ran into Charlie, a guy who used to work with Emily at the design firm before she quit. He was halfway through his second beer at Miller's pub when he saw me and waved me over. "Hey, Jack," he said, pulling out the stool next to him. "You hear about Emily?" I shrugged. "No. I don't keep up." He gave me that look like I was supposed to say, "Oh no, what happened?" "Well," he said, leaning in like we were about to share state secrets, "she's not doing too good. I guess after Scott died, she tried getting back into work but, it didn't click. She lost 2 clients in 1 week. Her mom pulled some strings to get her into this art therapy group, and even there, she started lashing out." I didn't say anything. Just sipped my beer and listened. "She's different now, man. Like, hollow. Still pretty, sure, but not the same fire. Some folks say she's got no soul left." I looked down at the bubbles rising in my glass and said, "Maybe she sold it." Charlie blinked. "Huh?" I smiled faintly. "Nothing. It was around that time I started seeing Rachel. We'd met through a mutual friend at a community barbecue. She wasn't flashy. Didn't wear $1,000 perfume or have Instagram followers begging for skincare routines. She was warm. Real. A high school English teacher who talked with her hands and cried when she read good poetry. We weren't anything serious at first. Just coffees and quiet walks, talking about anything that wasn't the past. She didn't press. And I didn't volunteer much. But over time, I found myself opening up without realizing I was doing it. "I always thought I'd be married by now," I told her one night, sitting on her porch swing as the wind pushed against us. Rachel just nodded. "Me too. Life's a hell of a writer, huh? Lots of twists." I chuckled. "Yeah. Mine's more like a bad soap opera." She looked at me. "Want a better ending?" I didn't answer right away. But I knew in that moment, I did. A few months passed. Life started to feel normal again. I laughed more. Slept deeper. Stopped flinching every time I passed the chapel where it all went south. Then one rainy Thursday, I saw her again. Emily. At the pharmacy of all places. Her umbrella was soaked, and she looked like she hadn't slept in days. She walked right past me at first, then did a double take. Her eyes lit up, not with hope, but surprise. Maybe even guilt. "Jack," she said, her voice so thin it barely reached me. "Emily," I nodded. She hesitated. "You look good." "You don't," I said before I could stop myself. She flinched. "Yeah. I guess I don't." There was a pause, thick as fog. "Can we talk?" she asked, her voice barely audible over the hum of the fluorescent lights. I sighed. "What for?" "I just need to explain. I think you misunderstood a lot." That almost made me laugh. "I didn't misunderstand anything, Emily. You told me, 5 minutes before our wedding, that you didn't love me. That you were screwing a dying man because it felt good. Not much room for misunderstanding there." She looked like she might cry again. But I didn't care. I didn't come here to fight, she whispered. Good, I said. Because you already lost. And with that, I turned and left her standing there in the cold pharmacy aisle, clutching a bottle of NyQuil like it was the only thing keeping her upright. That night, I called Rachel and asked if she wanted to grab dinner. She said yes, and I swear, just hearing her voice pulled me a little further from the wreckage. As we sat at a small Italian place later that evening, she reached across the table and placed her hand on mine. You seem lighter, she said. I nodded. I think I finally let go of something heavy. Good, she said with a soft smile. You deserve light. I didn't reply. But in my heart, I knew she was right. It was a Saturday when I got the letter. Not a text. Not an email. A real letter, written in pen, folded in thirds, and left in my mailbox like something out of the last century. My name was written in her handwriting. I recognized the loops in my J and the way the K looked like it was rushing to get away from the rest. Emily. Rachel was inside, humming while she stirred coffee and read something on her tablet. I stared at the letter like it was ticking, then walked it out to the garage. Sat on an old lawn chair, cracked it open, and let the past breathe again. Jack. I know you have every reason not to read this. I wouldn't blame you if you burned it. But if you're reading this, thank you. I need you to know something, even if it's too late to change a thing. Scott died 2 months ago. You probably heard already. He was peaceful. If that matters to you. It didn't to me, not in the way it should have. I felt numb. Cold. I thought I would feel redeemed or whole or free. But all I felt was the quiet. You were never the problem, Jack. I was. I ran from something steady and strong because it didn't scare me enough. I thought love had to feel like jumping off cliffs. But you? You were like sitting in a warm room during a thunderstorm. And I hated myself for not choosing that. I don't expect forgiveness. But I wanted to say it anyway, I'm sorry. For everything. Emily. I sat there for a long time, just holding the letter like it might vanish if I blinked. There was no return address. That night, Rachel noticed something was off. She always did. You're quiet, she said, sitting beside me on the couch, pulling her feet under a throw blanket. Just thinking, I said. About her? I looked at her. Honest and unafraid. Yeah, I admitted. Rachel didn't flinch. Did she reach out? I nodded and handed her the letter. She read it slowly, then folded it back neatly and handed it to me. Do you want to talk to her? No, I said, without hesitating. Good, Rachel replied. Because she doesn't deserve a reply. But the truth is, something lingered. Not love. Not longing. Just a quiet kind of ache, like a bruise you forget about until someone presses on it. I started to wonder if I had actually forgiven her, or if I just buried the hurt deep enough to keep moving. Was revenge enough? Was leaving her behind while I moved forward really justice? The answer came a week later in the form of an invitation. No, not from her. This time it was from the Community Arts Council. They were hosting a local gallery night. Turns out, Emily had submitted a series of mixed media pieces titled Before the Bells. Curiosity is a dangerous thing. And I guess I'm not above it. I went. The gallery was small, tucked between an antique bookstore and an old Italian bakery. When I walked in, I didn't see her. Just a few couples chatting, sipping wine, and staring at canvases like they understood the kind of pain that went into them. Then I saw the section with her name. 7 pieces. The first one was called Almost Husband. It was a framed wedding invitation, our real one, torn down the middle and stitched together with black thread. There were burns in the corners, and a single drop of dried wax over the spot where my name had been. The second was titled, His Eyes After I Spoke. Just a painted pair of eyes, mine, wide open, with tears dripping sideways like someone had tilted the canvas just to mess with gravity. The rest were similar. Raw. Ugly. Honest in a way she'd never been with me before. I stood there for maybe 10 minutes, not speaking. Not moving. And then, from behind me, I heard her voice. You came. I turned. She looked like a faded version of the woman I almost married. The hair shorter. Eyes tired. She wore a simple black dress and no makeup, like she wanted to vanish into the crowd. I did, I said. Didn't plan to. Just happened. I wasn't sure you'd see the invitation. I didn't. A friend forwarded it. She nodded, wringing her hands. Thank you for reading the letter. I didn't respond. I know, she whispered. But you came here, and that's something. I looked at her. No hate. No spark. Just a strange kind of distance. You know, Emily, I said, for a long time, I thought I'd never get past what you did. But I have. I'm not angry anymore. She nodded, almost looking hopeful. But I'm not sad anymore either, I added. And I think that's worse for you. Her face changed, just slightly. She knew what I meant. You wanted to break me, I said. But I healed. Without you. She blinked back tears. And then I walked out. Later that night, Rachel asked me how it went. It was closure, I told her, sliding into bed beside her. Not the kind you get with hugs and tears. The kind where you finally realize the past doesn't own you. She smiled softly. Sounds like peace. It is. I reached for her hand, pulled it to my chest, and whispered, she was a storm, Rachel. But you're the calm after. About a month after the gallery show, Emily disappeared from town. Not literally. Just from my radar. No posts, no sightings, not a whisper of her floating through the diner or the barbershop or the gym where folks like to gossip between sets. She was just gone. Like the wind had finally carried her to the next place that needed burning. Rachel and I kept living life the way it was meant to be lived, slow, steady, and full of little joys. Friday night takeout. Mornings with her feet on my lap and some crime doc playing in the background. She had this way of folding into my world like she was born there. No drama. No big moments. Just the kind of peace that grows deep roots. But peace has a funny way of stirring the ashes. One night, I got a message from a blocked number. No name, no profile photo. Just a sentence that twisted the knife I thought I'd already removed. You think she's done hurting people? You should see what she did to me. I stared at it for a long time. Rachel was already asleep, curled up beside me with one hand on my chest. I didn't want to wake her. Didn't want to stir the calm waters we'd built. But I also couldn't ignore the itch under my skin. I typed back. Who is this? The reply came a minute later. Call me. 5550392881. I should have ignored it. I didn't. His name was Cole Dawson. Sounded like a country singer. But on the phone, he sounded more like a man who'd aged 20 years in 6 months. She said you were the reason she didn't trust anyone, he told me. What does that mean? I asked. She said she'd been hurt before. Lied to. Played. She told me the man she was supposed to marry betrayed her, slept with her best friend. I blinked. She said I slept with her best friend? Yep, he said. Made you out to be some kind of manipulative, cold-hearted snake. Took her side in everything. And you believed her? For a while. But when the bills started going missing, and the savings account dried up, and I found out she was still seeing some guy from her grief counseling group, it clicked. You were her rebound? No, he said, his voice tightening. I was her next mark. Turns out, Emily hadn't changed. She just changed targets. Cole had a decent inheritance from his dad. Lived alone. Worked from home. Vulnerable in all the ways she could wrap her fingers around. He told me she played the victim card like a magician. Cried about Scott. Cried about me. Cried about how the world never let her catch a breath. She moved in with him within 2 weeks of their first date. Drained his accounts within 6. I whistled low through my teeth. So, what now? You calling every ex she's got? No, Cole replied. Just the ones who'll listen. I want to make something right again. Maybe for me. Maybe for you too. I didn't say anything. Then he added, you ever think about turning the tables on her? That conversation dug a hole in me. Not out of rage. Not out of heartbreak. But because somewhere deep down, there was a part of me that still wanted justice. Not closure. Not forgiveness. Revenge. The kind that doesn't leave bruises or break bones. The kind that leaves someone questioning everything they've ever done, while the rest of the world forgets their name. So I called Cole back the next day. Let's talk, I said. But we do this smart. Quiet. And legal. He chuckled. That's why I picked you, Jack. Heard you used to be a paralegal before you started working construction. Not just a paralegal, I said. I passed the bar 6 years ago. Never practiced long. But I remember enough. We built a plan. Not in a hurry. Not in some dramatic, action movie kind of way. Bit by bit, we started collecting every name, every lie, every man Emily had twisted and used. Cole got in touch with 2 others, one in Idaho, one in Maine. One lost a small business loan. The other got talked into putting Emily on the deed to his house. All of them wanted something. Some wanted money back. Some just wanted to see her finally held accountable. Me? I wanted her legacy ruined. Quietly. Permanently. So I started writing a legal brief. A neat, tidy case of financial fraud. False representation. A record of her trail, her lies, her manipulations. All we needed was the last piece. Emily herself. Cole said she was in Arizona. Flagstaff. Working at a wellness retreat, of all places. Teaching yoga and giving spiritual readings. Of course she was. We knew she'd reinvented herself again. But what she didn't know was that her old world, every burned bridge, every fleeced ex, was coming to her doorstep. With documents. With statements. With facts. And a little cherry on top. A formal complaint filed with the state attorney's office. Emily wasn't just going to be exposed. She was going to be remembered, in all the ways she didn't want. I walked into the bedroom late that night, slipped into bed, and kissed Rachel on the forehead. She stirred a little. You okay? Yeah, I whispered. Just cleaning up old messes. You're not looking for trouble, are you? No, I said softly. I'm just making sure it stops following me. It took 6 weeks for the letter to land on her desk. Certified mail. Return receipt requested. Full documentation enclosed. A thick packet with names, statements, bank records, witness affidavits, even a few screenshots of her flirty text messages to 3 men, all sent within the same hour. She must have opened it somewhere quiet, somewhere private, because there wasn't an earthquake that followed. No angry calls. No public scene. Just silence. A silence that said she knew the game was over. And this time, she wasn't holding the cards. We didn't take her to court. That was never the point. We didn't want her in jail. We didn't want a trial. We didn't want headlines. We just wanted her cornered with nowhere to run. You see, when someone like Emily gets exposed, truly exposed, not with emotion, not with rumor, but with hard facts and names and consequences, the shame doesn't need a courtroom. It spreads on its own. The yoga retreat fired her within a week. We never even made a phone call. They found out on their own once the documents started circulating online. One of the exes made a quiet blog post. Another reached out to a podcast about romance scams and told his story, never said her full name, just enough for the people who needed to know. And me? I did nothing but wait. Because revenge isn't about making noise. It's about making absence, where someone used to stand so tall, and now nobody even remembers their shadow. A month later, Cole texted me a photo. It was a snapshot from a local news site in Sedona. There was Emily in the background of a picture, working the register at a juice bar, hair pulled back, smile gone. She looked normal. Tired. Older. Smaller. And maybe for the first time, she was just living like the rest of us. No lies. No schemes. Just a woman in a borrowed apron trying to pay rent. It should have felt satisfying. But it didn't. It just felt done. I never told Rachel the whole story. Not all the way. She knew about the heartbreak. About Emily's betrayal. She even knew I'd been in touch with some of her exes. But I never laid out the plan. Not because I was hiding. But because I didn't want our future to smell like old smoke. Rachel deserved clean air. So one night, as we sat on the back porch with coffee in our hands and her toes nudging mine under the table, she asked, "Do you still think about her?" I paused. And then I said, "No." Not because it wasn't true, but because I finally could say it was. A year later, Rachel and I got married. Small wedding. Backyard, close friends. Her dad grilled burgers, and my mom cried when she saw me in a tie. No big speeches. No white doves. No elaborate promises. Just us. Standing across from each other. And this time, no one whispered they didn't love me. No one ran off to be with someone else. No one broke my heart at the altar. Rachel looked me in the eyes, squeezed my hand, and said, "You're home." And damn it, she was right. Emily still exists, I'm sure. Somewhere. Maybe she changed. Maybe she didn't. Maybe she still lies to new people, or maybe she learned what it means to wake up alone and wonder if the problem was never them. But she's no longer my story. She's just a page I turned. And sometimes, that's the best revenge of all. Not ruining someone. Not punishing them. But surviving them, quietly.